Well, good morning, everybody. Today we are officially moving into topic 2 in our integrated math 1 class. And in chapter 2, it is all about graphing and graphing a straight line, which you have been doing it since middle school, or maybe some of you in elementary school. Well, today we are doing some review first before we jumping into 2-1 slope-intercept form day 1. Okay, so let's start with the things that you need to know for section 2-1. First, you have to remember how do you solve two-step equations, especially involving fractions. So for example, if you have 3 equals 1/3 multiplied by x plus 1, there's two ways to do it. I know that some people, they would just work with fractions, and I personally like to eliminate fractions first. So on both sides, I will multiply both sides of the equations by the least common denominator. Well, since there's only one denominator and it is a 3, we're going to multiply both sides by 3. So you're going to multiply both sides by 3, just like what we did in topic 1 or chapter 1, so that we could eliminate the fractions right away. So we're going to distribute the right side of the equations by drawing arrows from the outside 3 to the inside 1, as well as from the outside 3 to the inside 1/3, so that we could multiply. So on the left, 3 times 3 is 9, and then on the right side, 1/3 times 3 will get you 1x, and then 1 times 3 will get you 3. And then from here, all we have to do is, since we have a plus 3 on the right side, we're going to isolate the variable by subtracting 3 on both sides like this. So the positive 3 and negative 3 cancel. 9 minus 3 is 6 on the left side, and you're left with 6 equals 1x. Well, 1x is just same as x by itself, so you can just write x equals 6, and this will be the answer for this equation. If you want to check, very easy, all you have to do is plug it back in. With x equals 6, plug it back into the first line of the problem. So 1/3 times 6 is 2. 2 plus 1, you do get 3. So that's the quickest way for you to check. The next thing that you need a review is the slope formula. So back in middle school, you learned the concept of slope, which is a steepness of a line. So if I put a pen like this in this direction, it's a positive slope, or this is a negative slope. This is zero slope when it's flat, and when it's vertical, it's undefined. So again, positive, negative, 0, and undefined slope. Well, if I were to ask you to find slope of 2 points that you cannot see graphically, there is a way to find the slope. It's by using the slope formula. So back in the days, you used the letter M to indicate the slope. So this letter M means slope. And the slope formula tells you to subtract the y. So y sub 2 minus y sub 1 on the numerator, and then x sub 2 minus x sub 1 on the denominator. So you're like, what is y sub 2, y sub 1, x sub 2, and x sub 1? So in every order pair, x always comes first before y. So we're going to say this is x, y, and xy. Since this is the first order pair appear in the problem, we're going to put a subscript 1. So that's why you have x sub 1, y sub 1. And then since this is a second order pair, it's going to be x sub 2, y sub 2. Well, we're going to plug in these four numbers correctly into the slope formula. Well, before I do that, it's actually easier for you to draw 4 boxes, and then you fill out the numbers. So that way you don't mess up with the negatives. What do I mean by that? So let's take a look at that. So y sub 2 is negative 6. So we're going to plug in negative 6 inside the box. Y sub 1 is 2. So we're going to plug in 2 inside the box. X sub 2 is 3, positive 3. So we're going to plug in positive 3 inside this box. And then x sub 1 is negative 3, and I want you to be careful. The 3 has a negative, so you're going to put negative 3 inside this box right here. Okay, then after that, you're going to simplify this fraction with the subtraction on the numerator and denominator. Now you can use a calculator. So negative 6 minus 2, if you use a calculator, you get negative 8. And then 3 minus negative 3, that's just same as a plus, right? When you see two negatives next to each other, it just becomes a plus. So 3 minus -3. If you use a calculator, you get +6. And you also have to check whether you need to simplify the fraction for the slope. Since both numbers are divisible by 2, you're able to simplify, reduce it by dividing top and bottom of the fractions by 2, and you'll get -4/3. So the slope between these 2 points, without graphing it, will equal to -4/3. So since the slope is negative, I imagine without the graph, the 2 points, it's going to connect like this, right, with a negative slope. And that's the review that you have to know. Now we're getting into the lesson. It's called 2-1 Slope-Intercept Form Day 1. Back in middle school or before previous math classes, you learned that the slope-intercept form is in this form, which is y equals mx plus b, where m is the value of the slope, and then the b is the y-intercept. Okay, so if I were to just make a graph of what is the slope, right? Let's say I have a random line like this, okay? Well, the y-intercept would be the intersection of this line and the y-axis. This is the y-axis. And so this point, we call that the y-intercept. So I'm also going to draw an arrow from the words to this point. So this particular point is called a y-intercept. Well, the slope would be the steepness of this line right here, which is shown as a staircase. Because remember, slope is just same as rise over run. So this is just same as rise over run. So if I have one point to another point like right here, let's say there's another point here, then to find the slope, all you have to do is count how much it goes up versus how much it goes to the left or right. Okay, so that's rise over run. And that's one way back in the days for you to calculate what is the value of a slope of this line by counting how many times it goes up and down over how many times it goes left and right. And that would be the value. And remember, slope, right? For the slope, it's usually is in a fraction. It's rise over run, right? And we use positive numerator, right? This is positive if it's going up, and we have a negative numerator if you count it down. Likewise, for the word run, we always count it, it's positive if we count it to the right, and the denominator is negative if we count it to the left. Okay, so these are the things that you have to remember before we continuing the lesson. So that's the slope-intercept form, and every slope-intercept form represents an equation of a line. So every line has a slope-intercept form. Doesn't matter if you draw it horizontally, positively, or negatively. Okay, so with that, we're going into some examples of how do you graph a line by using slope-intercept form. So let's go to example 1. Well, in this example, we have the slope-intercept form y equals 2x minus 1. And we want to remind ourselves, how do you graph this by just looking at the equation? First, I have to identify the slope, right? In this equation, the value of the slope would be the number in front of the x, which is 2. And before you actually graph the slope, you have to make this as a fraction. So to make 2 as a fraction, all you have to do is put 2 over 1. And I noticed that the numerator is positive, so it's going to be 2 units up. Okay? And because the denominator is positive 1, it will be 1 unit to the right. There should be no s on the units, but that's okay. So 1 unit right, okay? So we know the directions of where the graph is going. It's a positive slope, right? I'm not sure how steep it is, but it is definitely a positive slope. But the question is, where is the line located? Because if I were to put it here, 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 they're all positive slope. So we need to have a starting point for the graph. Well, to find a starting point, this is the number that would tell you where is the starting point, which is the -1. Well, for the starting point, we call this the y-intercept. That means on the y-axis, you should start at this number and then use the slope to graph other points on the line. So since it says y-intercept is equal to -1, on the y-axis, you need to find the number -1, which is right here. This dot right here is -1. So I'm going to make it larger a little bit, right? Just a little bit larger. And then from there, you count 2 units up and 1 unit to the right. So from here, you count 1, 2, 2 units up, and then 1 unit to the right. And then you graph another point, right? So you make it larger. Then keep going. So from here, you go 2 up, 1 right. So 2 up, 1 right like this. And then at the end, you see that those 3 points are on the same line. So at the end, you're going to use a ruler to connect the dots. And then boom, this is the line for this slope-intercept form y equals 2x minus 1. Well, another example, example 2, if you have y equals -5/3 x plus 2, since the fraction is negative, you have to decide, do you want to put the negative on the numerator, which is on the top, or do you want to put the negative on the denominator, which is at the bottom? So you got 2 choices. So this equation is just same as either y equals -5/3x plus 2, or you could write it as y equals 5/3x plus 2. You could only choose one place to put the negative in, either top or bottom. You cannot choose both. Well, let's say if I were to choose the first one here, if I were to graph this, well, it tells me that I need to start on the y-axis at 2. So remember, this is your y-intercept. So I'm going to use the 3 letters INT as the abbreviation for the word y-intercept. So since it says +2, I'm going to start from the origin, go up 2 units, and then plot the point, right? So this will be the y-intercept, +2, +2. And then from there, I need to find the directions of where is the second point by looking at the slope. Well, since the 5 is negative and it's on the numerator, it's going to be 5 units down. And since the 3 is on the denominator and it's positive, then it's 3 units to the right. So from this red point here, I'm going to move 5 down, 3 to the right. So let's count it together. So starting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then out from here, you count 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3. And then boom, this is another point. Now if I want, I could move it again by creating the third point by going 5 down, 3 to the right. But if I were to do this, I'm running out of space, so I am not going to plot the third point. So at the end, all you have to do is to connect these 2 points together using a ruler, and then boom, this is the line for the slope-intercept form y equals -5/3 x plus 2. Okay. Now, of course, if you want to use the second equation, in other words, if you want to move 5 up and 3 to the left, it's going to give you the same graph anyway. You're just going to have a different point. What do I mean by that? So let's say if I were to start from the middle, if I were to move 5 up and 3 left, again, it's 5 up and 3 left, then I'm going to get to this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. And this point right here, I know that if I were to extend my line a little bit further to this line, to this point, then I know that these 3 points are lie on the same line. So you could either do it this way or do it this way. They both will get you the same line anyway. In example 3, we're going to work backwards. Let's say if I were to give you a graph, well, how would you find me the equation y equals mx plus b? Okay, well, there are 2 numbers that you have to find, which is the value of the slope, so something x, right, that's the slope, and then plus the b, which is the y-intercept. The y and the x, they stays the same, right? They stays by itself because these are not numbers, they are just variables. But for the slope, all we could do is we could count the rise over run, and then for the b is we're going to find which number is this line intersecting the y-axis, right? We're going to find a number that is the intersection of the line and the y-axis. So let's find a b first. I think b would be the easiest to find. Well, all you have to do is you have to look at where the line crosses the y-axis. So these 2 intersections would look like it's located right here. So here is your intersection, and then you're going to count what is the tick mark on the y-axis. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me count it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. So since since the line in the y-axis intersects at the number 4 and it's positive, you're going to put positive 4. That's it, right? Plus 4. And then to find the slope, all you have to do is, just do rise over run. So from here, how do you get to this point? So you literally count. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3. So I know that I went 3 down. And then from here, how many times I have to move to the right? Let's count. 1, 2. So it's 2 to the right. Well, since it's 3 units down, the numerator of the slope would be -3. And since it's 2 units to the right, the denominator of the slope would be +2. So it's going to be -3 over 2x plus 4. Okay. If you want to put the negative in the middle, that's fine too. You can just write or y equals -3 over 2x plus 4. Both answers are acceptable. So this is how you find an equation by looking at the graph. First, you find where is the graph intersecting the y-axis. You're going to find this number. And of course, in this class, it's going to always be a whole number. No decimals, no fractions. And then for the slopes, sometimes it'll be a whole number. Sometimes it'll be a fraction. So you're going to count rise over run like this to find this fraction right there. And then from here, before we move on to day 2, you're going to work on your Pearson's homework titled 2-1 Slope Intercept Form Day 1. And then that's it for the lesson. So the next clip would teach you or review with you how to get your online homework. Thank you. Hey everyone, so to get to your homework, first you go to my CNUSD website and then you click on the top of the page, my CNUSD, to log in. Well, you're going to type in your username and your password. Well, in this case, your student ID and your password. Then you go on to resource. I think for you guys it's resource. And then you go to a place called Pearson Savas Easy. Pearson Savas Easy. I'm not quite sure how you say that word, but it's Pearson Easy. Click on that. And you get to this pop-up page. And you're going to click on your class textbook. So you click on this right here. This is called Envision Integrated Mathematics 1 2009 Common Core. You click on that, a new window pop up again, and you see 3 different colors. The green color is your online textbooks. I teach from this textbooks. So if you don't have a copy, an actual copy, you could always go to here and click on the appropriate sections that we're teaching. But to find your online homework, you look at the reddish, orangish box in between, in the middle. It's called classes. So you're gonna click on here, click on classes, and depending on which period you're in, there will be new assignments here. So you're going to click on the click into the assignments, and then do your homework, and then that's it. Well, inside the homework, there are problems for you to work on, which allow you 3 attempts before they give you the final answer. So for example, for this problem, if you accidentally got a wrong answer, it'll tell you keep trying. Then you type in another answer, and if it's wrong, then it'll give you one more chance. And the third time that you got it wrong, it'll tell you the answer right away. So, but you could always get help by viewing an example on this part of the feature. So it'll tell you what to do step by step until the final answer. So you could always refer to the question, help view an example, or you could use help me to solve this to actually work it step by step. So there will be more answer boxes for you to fill in, but at least it will help you on your learning. Now for this problem, what do you do when you get it wrong, right? So to get a point or to get scores on that homework, then you click on similar questions and you keep practicing until you get it right. So if I were to click on similar questions, you notice that the questions changed. It's different from the previous one. So let's say this time you got it right. Let's say x is equal to 5, right? Well, if you got it right, it will tell you well done, okay, and then you move on to the next problem. So you click on next to move on to the next problem, like this. And once you finish all the problem, I believe the next thing is for you to make sure that you answer all the questions. If there's anything that is not answered, make sure that you go back and look at it like this, right? So this is not answered. But let's say assume that if you finish your all of the questions on your homework, then you go to the bottom, I believe. Oh, actually, this button right here says submit my work. So you click on it, and then boom, I only got 3% just because I only answered one question correct, the rest I did not answer. So in order for you to get at least 80% or any good scores, make sure that you answer every single question and it's correct, not incorrect, for you to get as many points as possible on your homework. If you have any questions, please contact me.